It's the turn of the year, and you may have noticed that my content flow has slowed down quite a bit. Rather than pumping out a PvP IV deep dive once a week, I'm now pumping one out like every other week, right? So that can be a little bit frustrating if you want to know what the most optimal PvP IVs are for a particular species that you want to use in GBL or for a tournament or something like that, right? Well, in celebration for the new year here, I figured I'd give you some tips on how to do your own sort of PvP IV analysis featuring our Pokemon Wigglytuff, because it's shiny and it's got a little ribbon with the new year event. So yeah, I hope this video kind of helps you figure out how to do your own sort of light PvP IV analysis so you don't have to rely so much on me, especially when I'm not putting out as much content as I usually am. If there's anything important to know about this event beyond, shiny ribbon Pokemon, is that Party Hat Wurmple is coming back to 1-star raids, so me and my wife are going to be keeping our eyes peeled for that one. And then we also have this delectable head accessory now too. So starting out, I go to PvPoke.com, I go to Battle, and then I go to the Matrix section. Here I got the Play Pokemon Championship Series set up, but you can use the Great League custom group or any custom group you want to. Often I find that these groups don't cover everything I want to look at, so you can always add more Pokemon too if you want to look at some other specific matchups that you think might be important for the target Pokemon here. Then here on the side you can see I got several Wigglytuffs. Are these the secret swag IVs for Wigglytuff? Well, not exactly. First off here I have the rank 1 Wigglytuff, which you can do by hitting maximize 0, 15, 12. Then I have a Wigglytuff that has a higher HP weight than that Wigglytuff. So here I'm using the 0, 9, 15. Unfortunately, PvPoke doesn't have a auto button for maximum HP, but I feel like slightly HP weight usually works out a little bit better than maximum HP does anyways. And then I also have one that has maximum defense by hitting, defense and maximize. And then I got one in here that has like a slight attack weight. You want to get CMP on something. Maybe you're trying to think about the general Wigglytuff you're probably going to run into, not the Wigglytuff you want to get, which is, super high stat product. Just a little baby attack weight, right? And then I got a Wigglytuff with a pretty huge attack weight. And then you just run this simulation against the various shield situations. Now, a quick thing, a little tip from the swag man that has some experience here. When it comes to fast move heavy Pokemon, like, Charm, Waterfall, Razor Leaf kind of attacks, typically those Pokemon are going to favor having a higher stat product because more often than not, getting that extra attack in, that extra charm, is going to be more impactful than them dealing 1 extra damage per charm, right? Or them being able to survive to get to one of their charge moves because they've got lower energy gains. So typically that is the case. There are exceptions though. If you checked out my Shadow Victory Bell PvP IV deep dive, link above and description, cases do come up where having an attack weight is important enough against enough important matchups where having that slight attack weighted Pokemon could be very important for outcomes. But when it comes to Charmers, more often than not, we are looking at the high stat product here. That means the question you got to ask yourself is, well, what's the minimum bulk that I'm going to want to have on this Pokemon for it to be functional? Unless you've got a map or a scanner pointing you directly to the GPS coordinates of the rank 1 Wigglytuff, which Wigglytuff that you actually have is going to be rank 1 enough. So that aside, scroll on down, you can check out the matchup changes here. Where you can see that these variant Wigglytuffs are getting a Mantine breakpoint, and they are often losing against the Charm, Shadow, Alolan Ninetales. Keep in mind that the opponents here are maximum stat product, and when it comes to a lot of Charm versus Charm matchups, it is mostly going to be a duel of stat product because, well, you want to have enough defense to lower their Charm damage, you want to have enough HP so their Charms don't wear you down. So more often than not, it is just going to be like a bulk-based thing. And these are Shadow, Alolan Ninetales, so you're probably not going to be up against the rank 1 Shadow, Alolan Ninetales. But you can see that even this slight attack-weighted Wigglytuff is getting a breakpoint on the Mantine. If you go up here, you check out breakpoints, it'll highlight which Pokemon you could be getting an attack breakpoint against. The Gligar one, that looks kind of spicy for some dynamic situations. Skarmory, also a little tasty. But we are seeing that we're getting this matchup advantage with the Mantine, which could warrant some further investigation. So you click on this to pull up Mantine. Obviously we're getting the breakpoint here, and then you'll want to click on this matchup itself to see what the attack stat is. So against this rank 1 Mantine, the 0, 15, 14, so a little bit defense weighted on the Mantine to begin with. And Mantine does have similar attack breakpoints as the Noctowl does, so there are incentives to run an attack weighted Mantine as well. But should you be up against the, rank 1, big defense kind of Mantine here, you'll be wanting to have a 115.44 attack stat to gain this advantage. Now, to track this, usually I take a spreadsheet here, or you could use a pen and paper at home. And yeah, so you can see that it's 115.44. So then I'd put down 115.44 and then Mantine 11, just so I can have that in the back of my mind for later. Then we move up to the 1-2 shield scenario. I personally feel like the 0-1 and 1-2 shield scenarios are a bit more significant to think about than like the 2-1 or the 1-0 where you have a shield advantage, because being able to counter swap on your opponent and take them out regardless of the shield scenario is a pretty good thing if you can, come out of that with a shield advantage or not worrying about spending your shields. Yeah, you can see here, Mantine's situation still matters, even in the 1-2. And it's just charm damage, so they're probably not even making it to the second shield anyways, right? Then you check out the 2-2 shield scenario, and you can see that we're losing these superior matchups. And this is a pitfall of PvPoke if you're just trying to do some simple IV analysis without actually looking at the matchups, because if you pull up the rank 1 matchup and you pull up the not rank 1 matchup, right? So here we got the rank 1. Superior is throwing out 3 Frenzy Plants, and we're taking it out with the charm damage. But if you check out the not rank 1, all of a sudden, it changes up its strategy. The game plan has shifted, and it is now using a Leaf Tornado and is getting the 2 attack debuff, which allows it to get to this, victorious outcome here. So if you were to take this and you were to make that just a Frenzy Plant, then you'd see that we are maintaining the same exact win condition. So when it comes to like a volume-based approach for checking out how many wins and losses shift between different IV spreads and shield scenarios, make sure you're checking out how the matchup plays out in particular, because sometimes funny stuff like this happens where you should be winning, but PvPoke changed how it plays the matchup. And if you check here, and you make this into a Leaf Tornado against the rank 1, you can see that it has the same exact win con for Superior, right? Or I think it'd have to like use a Leaf Tornado there, but it's 50 damage, so it'd KO. Anyways, regardless, it is the same win condition for Superior as it is against the variant IV spreads. So when you are looking at these matchup changes, make sure you're actually looking up the matchup changes, because you might be a little bit misled into thinking a particular IV spread is better or worse than what it actually is in practice. Now when it comes to this Spark Lantern situation, this is another complicated thing when it comes to these debuff Pokemon. If you check out the rank 1 situation, you can see that Lantern is barely beating it by 2 HP. And if you go over here, you can see that we're winning out by 3 HP, but we got significantly less HP, and we're not getting a defense breakpoint against the spark damage. So what's happening here? Well, you have the post-debuff breakpoint to think about. So you can see here the 7, right, for each spark, and then you got the Icy Wind. Now it's changing to 5 for each spark. Where if you go over to the rank 1 here, with its lower defense, you got the 7, and the 7 is only changing to a 6. So when it comes to, post-debuff breakpoints, that gets to be very confusing to try to figure out, because PvPoke currently doesn't have a nice simplified way for us to take a peek at that. But it is worth noting, should a higher defense variant of Wigglytuff become the preferred variation of Wigglytuff based off of what else you find out in the analysis. And then also, if you're going into a particular meta where the Spark Lanterns are common, well, if you happen to have a very high defense Wigglytuff, you might prefer bringing that one into that kind of competition, knowing that you could possibly get this post-debuff breakpoint advantage. So I'd go into Wigglytuff, and then I'd put like high defense post IW Spark Lantern, just so I know to check it out later should it interest me. But finding out the post-debuff breakpoints, especially against higher attack-weighted iterations of a species, it gets to be very annoying to try to hammer down. Then we check out the 2-1 shield scenario, and you can see we're losing against the Spark Lantern here with this lower quality of bulk. So how much bulk do we exactly need to survive the Lantern? Well, if you check out the matchup here, you can see that we're losing this fight by just 2 HP. So 224 HP could be a good baseline. So keep that 224 in your mind. But you can see that we are getting hit by a single Thunderbolt here, dealing 78 damage. This Wigglytuff has 74.8 defense. If you scroll down here and you change that Spark to the Thunderbolt, our 74.8 is giving us that 97, right? But if we had the 75.47, then we might need one less HP. 223 could be fit in the bill here. Another thing to keep in mind, though, is that we are only 74.8. So if there is even the slightest attack weight on this Lantern, that Thunderbolt's going to be dealing 1 extra damage. So overall, unless you're like, popping 75 plus defense, 225 HP could be more consistent. So for that, I would copy that, go back to the sheet, and I'd say like Lantern, Spark Lantern, 2-1, and then 224 HP with defense, and then go like 225 more consistent. And then we also have Superior popping up again, which is likely the same situation we saw in the other shield scenario. Then we pop on over to the 0-1 shield scenario. You can see that we're losing against Lickitung and Medicham, and that's pretty alarming, right? Like losing the Lickitung as a normal type Pokemon using, a neutral attack, that seems a little whack. You check out bulk points and you see that it's getting a break point on our lower defense iterations. But you can see here that it's not super strict. The 5, 14, 15 is getting the defense break point. So what is the defense break point, right? So if you click on it, you'll see against the rank 1 Lickitung that we need 74.25 defense. And that's for the Lickitung 0-1, right? But this is Lickitung. And if you checked out my Lickitung PvP IV deep dive, link up above and description if you haven't checked it out yet, you know that I prefer the attack-weighted Lickitung. And experience has taught me time and time again that attack-weighted Lickitung is often, a really good Lickitung. Like I've seen people at the play Pokemon tournaments get kind of frustrated that, Lickitung dealt 1 extra power whip damage like their Shadow Alolan Sandslash, so that upset like the 0-0 for them and stuff like that. Like attack weighted Lickitung is the thing that that's out there, but you really hope it isn't sometimes, right? Well, when I do my deep dives, I try to prepare for the attack weighted Lickitung when I see a Lickitung matchup change. So the 10, 15, 14 is an example of one such Lickitung. You can see it's got the 98.2 attack stat. If you want to prepare against like a even slightly higher attack weighted version, you could go like 10, 14, 13, right? So 98.5 attack. How much defense do we need for that? Well, 75.08 for 98.5 attack Lickitung. And sometimes I like to reference what IV I used so I can check it out later. And then because I make these guides, I try to explain everything as well in the guide. So that's the Lickitung. And now we got Medicham. What's going on with Medicham? Well, Medicham's getting a counter break point on us. I know Medicham has seen better days with the current update, but it is still out there. It is still a threat. And yeah, having a bit higher defense could help us beat this Pokemon. We're a fairy type Pokemon. We should be beating Medicham, right? 73.41. But this is the rank 1 Medicham. If you checked out my Medicham PvP IV deep dive or my Medicham Slayer PvP IV deep dive, I'll link to both in the description, one in front of your face, I guess. But you'll know that my favored best of both worlds kind of Medicham is going to be like the 7, 15, 14 with the 106.9 attack stat. So I feel like preparing for a slightly attack weighted Medicham might be a little bit more sober than preparing for the rank 1. That brings us to a 74.13 defense stat. On top of that, there are Medicham out there that have even higher attack stats than this. For example, in the Medicham Slayer PvP IV Deep Dive, I highlight the Axin Medicham and Axin adjacent Medicham, which have a high attack stat so they can get breakpoints on opposing Medichams. So having an even higher defense stat than the 74.13 could be important for the Wigglytuff here. So go like 74 plus defense, and then it's the Medicham 0-1, right? And then against 16, 15, 14. Then we got the 0-0 shield scenario. Lickitung rearing its head once again. So Lickitung 0-1 and 0-0. And you can see that we're now taking the Wigglytuff mirror matchup, probably because it's CMP based, I'd have to guess, based off of this and that and all of them kind of making it. So CMP for the 0-0, not bad. And then we are also running into a Pelipper situation, which breakpoints are involved, so it's probably like a very tight high-end bulk point that we're considering there. And yeah, Medicham rearing its head once again. So with this investigation here, what can we conclude about the Wigglytuff? Well, it's pretty clear as day that we probably want to have at least a 75 defense stat. And then when it comes to the HP, probably good to have 224 at a base. 225 could be even cooler. And if we happen to have the 115.44 for the Mantine, well, why not? So to find out what those IV spreads are, I'd go to PvPIVs.com, click away the ads if I can because I'm making a video, and then go Wigglytuff, right? And then here I can put in the stats. So we're looking at 225, and then for defense we're looking at 75, right? And then it is a little bit more than 75, so like 75.1, let's say. And then expand this. Yeah. And you can see here that these are the 11 different IV spreads that meet the condition of having at least 225 HP with at least 75.1 defense. So if you're keeping your eyes peeled for a particular Wigglytuff, these might be the Wigglytuffs you want to look out for. Man, what's the rank 1 got going on? Is rank 1 224? Yeah, the rank 1's 224. So if you happen to have a high enough defense stat, then, 224 is probably A-okay. So that can expand your options to 229. Just keep in mind that the ones that got the lower end of the defense stick, like this one here, might not work out with the 224 on the HP stat. And you can also see that precisely 0 of these IV spreads have a high enough attack weight for the rank 1 Mantine, but once again, is it that big of a deal? Because rank 1 Mantine, Mantine kind of likes having a little bit of an attack weight, so you might be getting that breakpoint anyways. And then of course, you'd run this stuff once again against the default IVs, so you can get an idea of like more random IV Pokemon, not just the rank 1 Pokemon, and then also spot check specific matchups where there could be, well-known IV variations, like I did with the Lickitung and the Medicham. So with that information at your disposal, I hope you have some happy hunting, finding some big bulk Wigglytuffs out there this new year, and I hope this helps you do your own sort of PvP IV analysis in the future should I not be able to cover a particular Pokemon you want in time for you to use it for GBL or a tournament or something like that. Anyway, that's all I gotta say about the new year right now. If you got any questions on this content, of course, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, you want to see more like it, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. There do come cases do come up where having an attack weight